Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of ComputerShare's Ask the Expert series. I'm joined today by my colleague, Paul Kahn, the head of ComputerShare's Global Capital Markets business. Paul, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Jason. Great to be here.
All right, you recently published an article on the anniversary of T+1, and there was a bit of chatter about that. So we'd like to get your thoughts about the significance of that milestone. And for those in our audience who may not be familiar with the T+1 implementation, could you please start by defining what T+1 is, why it's significant, and why was it, as you put it in your article, such a big deal?
Okay, thank you. Well, the definition of T+1 is really a settlement discipline. It means trades on the US markets must settle one business day after the day a trade is effective. So from the end of May 2024, the markets in the US, in Canada, in Mexico, and a few other markets transitioned to this shorter accelerated settlement period. Why was that important? It was important because it reduces the market risk in transactions. That risk can build up in the settlement system. If you halve the amount of time that counterparties are given to settle their trades, theoretically you significantly reduce the risk. So that's what T+1 is. It was a very big deal. It took the US and North American markets, 18 to 24 months to implement this. It went very effectively. I think if you look more historically, the markets were trading a T+5 settlement period right through until mid-90s. Then the US markets adopted a T+3 settlement system, or T+3 settlement discipline, I should say. Then in 2017, the US markets adopted a T+2 settlement discipline, and now in 12 months ago we moved to T+1. And obviously this creates a ripple effect all around the world because markets need to become more efficient, and shortening the settlement period is a really key attribute of the efficiency and risk minimization in markets.
Right, right. And so looking back on that first year of it being enacted, how do you see it? How do you see other markets adapting to or adopting T+1?
Well, the markets are globally connected, and many people would say are globally integrated in a kind of broad economic sense. So when a market like the US, or in this case actually technically Canada, went live one day before the US did because it was a public holiday here in the US, so the Canadians won out there. But as we implement T+1, it really puts pressure on markets all around the world to follow suit. So what you've seen is announcements by the UK government. The European Central Bank has announced that European markets will implement T+1 settlement from the 27th of October 27. So they've still got a couple of years to go in the planning process before they're ready to move, UK separately and Europe separately into a T+1 environment. Then broadly, the whole Northern Hemisphere will be settling on a T+1 basis.
Okay. Now, let's talk about what's coming next. In your article, you also commented on the implementation or the move to 24-hour trading. How do you see the 24-hour trading impacting or bringing even more change that will affect capital markets globally?
Okay, well, this is a big topic, and maybe before I go into the 24-hour trading idea concept, it's not a new concept, but it certainly is a very topical one at the moment. It's important to really focus on the fact that these stock markets need to be operating on a similar settlement period. Why is that? Because international investors are buying equities in one market and selling equities in another market. So if you have the US markets trading a T+1 settlement environment, and you have, let's say, the Australian market trading T+2, that automatically creates some inefficiency as people are reallocating their portfolio. So that's why ultimately all markets follow suit. So that's the settlement period.
Okay.
The piece you're focusing on now is really the length of the trading day. And there are two proposals that are being kicked around in the marketplace at the moment. The first is what's called 23 by 5. That means that the markets in the US, we're talking about US markets only here, would be open for 23 hours every day of the week, Monday through Friday. So it would be a significant extension of the trading hours that apply today. Why is that important? It's important because we all think we can get home and the markets are closed. Other countries' markets are open, but the US market will be open virtually all the time. So that's the first proposal. There are others that want to move to 24/7 trading, just like the foreign exchange market. I think we're some way off that. There's, I think, some significant change that needs to be made to the market infrastructure before markets are really able to trade 24/7. And then you've also got other people that are looking to reduce the settlement period from T+1 to T0. So you've got these different protocols starting to converge on one another, where the settlement period for a trade is contracting, but also the trading hours are expanding. So that's going to really revolutionize the way the markets operate.
Yeah. And potentially, that introduces some risk into the whole process that will also need to be addressed. So,
sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I was really just going to say it's really two parts to this. One is having a clear pathway for the markets to move to, let's say, a 23/5 trading environment for the US. And then I think there really needs to be a broad market dialogue about what does 24/7 really mean and what changes to infrastructure need to be implemented before the markets can move to that type of environment in a secure way. Ultimately, we need robust market where there's high integrity, high efficiency, but with good planning and with market participants broadly agreeing on what the core principles are and what the timetable is, we can all get there. But we need to get there together.
Right. So let's put it all together. When you put in perspective T+1, and then you add to that the move or potential move to 24-hour trading, what does it all amount to in your mind?
I think we're entering a period, and this is why I titled the article, "What's the Big Deal?" I've been around markets for a long time, so I'm a little bit of a markets geek. Why is this a big deal? It's a really big deal because the marketplace would change. And we're in a global market. So if the US market, the largest, deepest market in the world, moves to operate on this basis, other markets will be forced really to follow suit. I think T+1 is a given. All markets around the world will need to adopt that. China's already on T+1. India's already on T+1. I've already talked about UK and Europe going to T+1 in October 27. You've got outliers like the Australian market and potentially the New Zealand market, because it's so deeply connected to the Australian market, not going on to T+1 until 2030 because of other events in the Australian market. But it's going to create a lot of competition, right? It's going to create competition between markets. But when you overlay on that 23/5 trading, you've got a really different environment because, let's face it, institutional investors, they can virtually trade anywhere in the world today. Retail investors can't. But when the US market is open 23 hours, 5 days a week, you're going to have retail investors all around the world wanting to access the US market. That could be good for liquidity in the US markets. But boy, there's going to be competition for capital. And so other markets are going to need to see how they follow suit. Whether they go to 23/5, I don't know. That may not work for all markets. But we're certainly in for a period of change, that's for sure. And I think we're in for a period of dynamic competition between stock markets around the world.
For sure.
That really was the essence of the article.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me today. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. A fascinating subject. And those of you who enjoyed this, you can download Paul's article on the ComputerShare website as well. So thanks, Paul. Always great to see you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me along. Thank you.
Yep. Take care.